She gave birth and was abandoned by her husband. But years later, he begged her for forgiveness. Hi, welcome to another story. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications. As soon as the nurse placed the baby in Michelle's arms, the sound of a suitcase dragging across the floor cut through the room like a verdict. She barely had time to look at Michael. His eyes didn't seek hers. He didn't approach his son, didn't say a word. He just spun on his heel and walked toward the door with heavy steps, as if each stride pushed years of history away. "Michael?" Michelle murmured, her voice shaky from the exhaustion of labor and the confusion of the moment. But he didn't answer. He opened the bedroom door and left without looking back. The door slammed shut with a dry, final sound. Michelle's eyes widened, her body still numb, trying to understand. He just went to get something, right? She said weakly, looking at the nurse. The woman hesitated, unsure what to say. She just lowered her eyes and quietly adjusted the bedsheet. Michelle tried to sit up, feeling the pain of the stitches tearing inside, but she ignored it. "Give me my phone. Please. I need to call him." "This must be a misunderstanding," she insisted, as a tear slid down the side of her face. Hours passed, then days, and no answer came. The phone rang in vain until he blocked all her attempts. Michelle called, sent messages, recorded crying voice notes, pleading, trying to understand. "You can't just disappear like this, Michael. You have a son, my God. At least explain. Why? What happened?" she said in a choked voice, sometimes between sobs, sometimes silently staring at the phone screen that now only showed "message not delivered." The days in the hospital dragged on with clotted milk, pain from the scar, and an absolute emptiness where there should have been support. When she was discharged, she went home with a bag of diapers and her son in her arms. His absence was like a cold wall in every room. The closet was missing clothes. In the bathroom, his things were gone. The joint bank account balance was zero. The abandonment had not been an impulse. It had been planned. "He disappeared, Sarah. It wasn't just cowardice. He planned this," she said, crying to the neighbor who sometimes watched the baby. "Do you really think he was already with someone else?" Sarah asked suspiciously. Michelle closed her eyes in anger. "I don't think so. I found out. I investigated. There were transfers to an unknown account. And I got a message from an unknown number. A woman. Sent a photo of the two of them together. Said I should get used to it." Michelle's hands trembled, holding the phone as if it were a weapon exploding memories. "While I was vomiting every morning, he was traveling with her. While I was doing prenatal appointments alone, he was buying furniture for a new house in another city," she said, voice full of restrained anger. The following months were a silent battlefield. Michelle cleaned houses, washed clothes on the side, took any odd job that came up. She carried her son in her arms, strapped to her back, or left him with the neighbor for hours, always with guilt in her chest. The food was rationed. But she didn't stop. There was no time for sadness, only effort. "You'll have everything I can give you, son," she said every time she saw the boy's attentive eyes following her movements as she scrubbed the floor. Years passed slowly and wearily. But little by little, she rebuilt a routine. Benjamin grew strong, kind, polite. Michelle took him to and from school, even if she had to walk through 2 neighborhoods. Until one day, leaving the market, she saw a figure standing across the street. It was him, Michael. Thinner, worn down, holding an envelope in his hands. "Michelle?" he said softly, with a look mixing guilt and something else she couldn't identify. She froze. Time stopped around her. The bag slipped from her hand. "What are you doing here?" she asked, feeling bile rise in her throat. I needed to see you," Needed to see Benjamin, Michael said, voice breaking. He handed her the folder. I'm sick. Found out not long ago. Something serious. I just wanted to see my son before it's too late. Michelle looked at the papers, pretending to pay attention. Tests, doctors' names, prescriptions. And the woman you cheated on me with, Emily, right? Is she dead? Or just tired of you? She asked sharply. Michael lowered his eyes. She left a long time ago. Left me when she found out about the illness. I was alone. I only have you now, he said, letting a tear fall without meeting her eyes. Michelle swallowed her scream. You think one tear fixes this? She whispered through clenched teeth. I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. But if I die without my son knowing me, what was the point of all this? He said, falling to his knees, voice trembling. You've been dead to us for a long time, Michelle replied. In the following days, Michelle couldn't sleep. She went through the papers, went to the hospital named in the tests. Hi, I'd like to confirm if these tests were really done here, she asked at the reception, trying to hide her nervousness. The receptionist typed for a few minutes, then looked at her with a strange expression. Ma'am, there are no tests here under that name. Michelle's eyes widened. And this doctor? Does he work here? The woman shook her head. That name isn't even in our system. We've never had a professional by that name. Michelle's breath caught. Her hands sweated. She grabbed the papers and left silently. It was a fraud. Arriving home, heart still tight from the conversation with Michael, she opened her laptop. Something didn't add up. His pained eyes seemed rehearsed, his weak voice too fake to be sincere. She typed the name she'd avoided for years, Emily. The profile was still there, open, intact, as if nothing had happened. And on the first scroll, the confirmation hit her like a punch to the stomach. A photo posted days earlier, Michael and Emily side by side, smiling in front of a lodge. He wore the same cap he had when he reappeared. The caption was a mockery. Finally, a well-deserved fresh start. Michelle's eyes widened, blood boiling. No care to hide, no attempt to disguise. They didn't even bother, she murmured in a shaky voice as anger surged like a violent wave. She scrolled a bit more. Recent likes, friends' comments, heart emojis. Nothing indicated a breakup, a sickness, a tragedy. On the contrary, the couple seemed to be celebrating. Michelle pressed her lips, jaw clenched. You came to me, looked me in the eyes, and lied with a straight face, she said quietly, her body starting to tremble. She grabbed her phone, took screenshots of everything. Opened a chat with her lawyer, and started typing quickly, heart pounding. Michael showed up saying he's sick and wants to see Benjamin. He cried, said Emily left him, but it was all lies. I just saw a recent photo of them together. They never separated. They're trying to fool me again. I have proof. When he realized he couldn't manipulate her, Michael changed tactics. He started stalking her. Spread rumors that Michelle was keeping him from seeing his son. Said she was unstable, aggressive. Called the school, left anonymous messages. Claimed to be a concerned father. Talked about abuse, abandonment. Went to the building's gate and cried loudly. I just want to see my son. She won't let me. Some neighbors shook their heads. Others believed him. You should let the boy see his dad, poor guy, said one neighbor. Michelle stayed silent. She knew the truth needed time. But time was running out. Until one day outside the school, the bomb exploded. Michelle was walking hand in hand with Benjamin, laughing at a joke about homework, when a voice cut through the air like a knife. You're crazy, a manipulator. You're keeping my son away from me like he's your property, shouted Michael, appearing from across the street, pointing his finger with contempt. People stopped, students, parents, teachers, all watching. Michelle froze, trying to stay strong. "Don't talk like that in front of him," she yelled back, pulling Benjamin close. Benjamin, with teary eyes, squeezed his mother's hand and said in a shaky but firm voice, "Stop talking about my mom like that. She takes care of me, unlike you." Michael laughed, loud and cruel. "Take care? You only get in the way. You'll grow up full of hate for me because of her, you little lost kid. You're a shame to everyone," he raged, throwing words like knives. Michelle felt her face burn with humiliation, but didn't back down. "You want to talk about shame? You disappeared, left me alone on that hospital bed with our son in my arms and vanished like a coward," she shouted, advancing and pushing him hard. Michael staggered back, laughing sarcastically. "See? That's what crazy looks like. She's nuts, people. You can't trust her." And in a violent move, he shoved Michelle brutally to the ground. Her arm scraped the concrete. A sharp pain shot through her body. Benjamin screamed desperately, "Mommy!" He ran to help her, eyes full of tears. The crowd fell silent, shocked. A teacher tried to step in. A mother pulled her child away, while Michael stood there panting, as if he couldn't believe what he had done. Michelle looked up, eyes burning, and whispered, "It's over for you. Over." She hugged Benjamin tightly as he sobbed quietly. He tried to say something, but no one heard. Michael's mask had cracked but not fully fallen. He would still try to play the victim, manipulate, but Michelle would no longer back down. In the following days, Michelle started noticing different looks in the building. A neighbor who always smiled now turned his face away. The mother of one of Benjamin's classmates whispered to another at the school gate. Then the comments came. "She has episodes, you know," someone said in a hallway. "They say the boy is always locked in his room," another added. These words were spread with surgical poison. Michelle didn't need proof to know where they came from. Emily sometimes passed by with a serene smile, like a concerned relative. She'd come with a cake, a caress for Benjamin, a polite conversation with the building manager. "Michelle looks so tired, right? Sometimes I think she needs help, poor thing." The mask was perfect. She was the villain with the face of an angel, and Michelle had no way to prove it. Yet. Days later, Emily appeared again at Michelle's building, unannounced, without ceremony. She climbed the stairs, stopped at the apartment door, knocked firmly, and waited. When Michelle opened, Emily looked her up and down, a cold smile forming on her lips. "You think this is over?" she said with disdain, her voice dripping poison. "You'll still hear a lot about us. Don't think you've won." Michelle felt blood boil but said nothing. Emily turned arrogantly, stomped on the stairs, and disappeared down the hall. Only the echo of sharp words remained, and the certainty that the war was far from over. Days after Emily's attack, something even scarier happened. 3 dry knocks at the door. Michelle wiped her hands and opened, unaware of what awaited. 2 men and a woman, all wearing badges around their necks. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Michelle. We are from Child Protective Services. We received an anonymous complaint and need to verify some information." She froze. "Complaint? What complaint?" she asked, voice trembling. The woman replied in a formal tone. "Abuse and neglect of a minor. We need to come in." Michelle's blood ran cold. "You're joking, right?" she whispered, shaking. But no one was joking. They entered, opened cupboards, asked about schedules, meals, school. Benjamin was in his room playing on the carpet. When he saw the strangers, he shrank back. "Son, it's okay. Mommy will fix it, okay?" Michelle tried to smile, but he just looked at her, silent, eyes wide. "How often does he bathe?" the man asked. "Does he have psychological support?" the woman asked. "Where's the father?" the other asked, flipping through a notebook. Michelle answered everything, stammering. He bathes every day, goes to school, has a psychologist, yes, because of some old traumas. The woman looked at her suspiciously. Traumas from what exactly? Michelle felt her legs give way. From the father. The father disappeared, then showed up saying he was sick. But it was a lie. And he was aggressive. He pushed me in front of the boy. I have everything recorded. The inspector said nothing, just took notes. The men searched toys, looked inside the fridge, rummaged through the medicine drawer. Benjamin watched everything silently. Only his eyes spoke, and they said fear. After almost an hour, the three gathered and thanked her. We will contact you again. For now, keep the child on a normal routine. Michelle closed the door as soon as they left and leaned against the wood. She broke down in tears. They won't stop, my God, she whispered, hugging her son tightly. Benjamin trembled. Mom, will they take me away? He asked, voice choking. Never, my love. They will never take you from me. But inside, she wasn't so sure anymore. Days later, she was called to the school. The coordinator greeted her with a tense look. Michelle, we need to talk. We received an envelope. It was delivered by a woman who said she was Benjamin's father's cousin. Michelle frowned. Cousin? What was she like? The coordinator hesitated. She didn't leave a name, just said she was family of Benjamin's father, handed the envelope and left. Michelle clenched her teeth. It had to be Emily. Of course it was her. The director opened the envelope. Medical reports. Documents alleging Michelle suffered episodes, had unstable behavior, had been hospitalized before. That's all false, Michelle said, trembling. I've never been hospitalized, never had episodes. That's made up. The coordinator nodded, but her tone was bureaucratic. We know, but due to the severity, we are required to notify and register. This goes to a higher authority. Michelle left the room as if the ground had disappeared beneath her. That same day, she decided she couldn't live like this anymore. She sat with her lawyer and laid it all out. Screenshots, photos, videos, school reports, neighbors' contacts. The lawyer was firm. We'll sue, but it takes time. Justice is slow. You have to stay strong. Michelle nodded. I'm going to the end. They won't destroy my son. But the worst was yet to come. On a cloudy day, arriving to pick up Benjamin from school, she was greeted by a nervous employee. He already left, Mrs. Michelle. Michelle stopped. What do you mean, left? With whom? The woman turned pale. A woman came. She had documents, said she was the child's mother, also brought a paper signed by the father. Everything seemed legit. Michelle screamed. You gave my son to her? The woman cried. I didn't know. She showed everything. The papers were all right, I swear. Michelle ran to the street. Nothing. No sign. The phone didn't ring. Panic took over. She went straight to the police station. He was kidnapped. They took my son. The officer wrote calmly. Do you know who it was? I do. It was the woman who helped his father fool me. She had done this before, but now they disappeared. He's just a child. Her voice faltered. Tears fell uncontrollably. Hours of despair followed. Searches, calls, questions. Until at night, a call from the children's shelter. We found a boy matching the information you gave us. He was left in a park by an unknown woman. He was crying a lot. Michelle ran. When she saw Benjamin, she dropped her bag on the ground and hugged him so tightly it seemed she wanted to fuse him into her own body. Never again, my love. They'll never touch you again. He cried so much he couldn't speak. That night, he slept clutching his mother's arm, as if it were the only anchor left. After that, Michelle had no doubts. She moved houses, changed schools, changed her entire routine, stopped taking the same routes, cut off old acquaintances. Bought a new phone. all to try to protect her son. But she didn't stop there. She began organizing a dossier: audio recordings, social media screenshots, school statements, social worker reports, videos from the day Michael pushed her, everything carefully gathered. "They won't destroy me quietly," she repeated to herself every early morning. With what little she had, she renewed the contract with her lawyer. "It's now or never," she said, handing over the folder with the evidence. The woman's eyes widened. "You have a solid case. But be prepared. He'll try to spin the story." And he did. Michael filed a formal request for joint custody. Michelle read the document with trembling hands. He called her unstable, manipulative, vindictive. Said she prevented Benjamin from knowing his father, that she incited hatred, that she didn't allow affection, that she urgently needed psychological evaluation. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was full. Michael entered in a dark suit, eyes watery. He was crying. He walked slowly to the center of the room. When the judge arrived, he knelt. "Your Honor, I just want to be a father. Yes, I made mistakes, but I've changed. I just want a chance to do things differently." The judge watched silently. "I want to be present, to be an example, to give love. I can't be punished forever. My son deserves to know who I am." Michelle looked at him silently. She knew it was theater. But what hurt most was seeing Emily sitting in the front row with a sad look and a handkerchief in her hands, as if she were just a passive observer. The hypocrisy was glaring. Then it was Michelle's turn. She stood slowly, looked at the judge, and took a deep breath. "Your Honor, for years I tried alone. I was abandoned on that hospital bed, with my body cut and my heart in pieces. This man left me with a newborn in my arms and a void that almost swallowed me. After years gone, he came back with lies, made up an illness, said he wanted to see his son. It was all false. I found out. I have proof. They were together all along." She handed over the folder. The lawyer spoke firmly. "Medical reports, videos, statements, witnesses. Everything he alleges against her is fabricated. He is also being investigated for kidnapping and document forgery." The judge read every page, watched the videos, consulted the documents, took a deep breath. "What I see here is not a custody dispute. It is an attempt at revenge, manipulation, abuse." Michael swallowed hard. Mrs. Michelle has demonstrated with solid evidence her integrity, dedication as a mother, and the seriousness of the lies presented by this party. Silence filled the room. The request for joint custody is denied, and from now on, any attempt at contact by Mr. Michael will be considered a threat. He is legally prohibited from approaching the child or the mother. Michelle closed her eyes, a relief beyond words. But Michael did not accept quietly. Leaving the courthouse, he exploded. "You bitch! This isn't over!" he shouted, spitting on the ground. "You destroyed everything. You!" He lunged, but was held back by security. He called Benjamin a bastard, shouted for all to hear. The crowd looked at him with contempt. The mask had fully fallen. There was no longer an act to sustain. Days later, the case advanced with full force. Michael was formally charged with identity fraud, kidnapping, stalking, and document forgery. Emily, as an active accomplice in all the schemes, was also indicted and faces the same charges. Justice acted swiftly. Both were taken into preventive custody, facing the harsh reality of jail while their names became public, forever stained by serious accusations. Doors that once opened with smiles and greetings closed firmly behind them. People who knew them now averted their gaze and crossed the street to avoid any contact. Meanwhile, Michelle stayed strong, wounded, but standing, rebuilding her life from scratch, day after day, with a dignity that no suffering could erase. And when asked about Michael, she answered with the serene and strong voice of someone who won the battle. He's just someone who pretended to love, and now has no one left to fool. That night, after everything, Michelle lay beside Benjamin in silence. The room was small, simple, but full of peace. He slept with his face pressed against hers, just as he had on the first day, way back on that hospital bed. And for the first time in many years, she cried not from fear, but from relief. Because now, finally, they were free. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.